It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search it out is the glory of kings. This is the Message to Kings podcast.
Episode 349, The Parable of the Wise and Foolish Virgins. Matthew 25. The kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, Behold, a bridegroom is coming, so go out to meet him. Then all the virgins arose, trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, No, lest there should not be enough for you and us. But go rather to those who sell oil and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. Afterward the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Assuredly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. So there's a lot of ways to look at this parable. There's the incredibly simple, practical takeaway of being filled up, watchful, and wise, waiting for the Lord. There's other ways to look at it. The Holy Spirit is often symbolized as oil, always waiting and holding and understanding that there is valleys and mountaintops in this lifetime, and it's the character that we learn that allows us to sustain and persevere and be steadfast while we're waiting on God to act. That's almost directly from Paul in his writings. We need oil to burn. I mean, come on. It's the fire of the Holy Spirit in Acts 2 that they were like fire upon their heads. Like lampstands, like lamps. That's those who burn for God. There's the waiting, there's the persevering, there's the steadfast. There's also the context of the book of Revelation and some interesting perspective that we can take too. And we'll probably end the podcast with that, rolling into both versions. In fact, there's many interpretations, and I'm going to actually give them all together. It'll be interesting. So the Jewish interpretation. So the Jewish context is probably a better way to put it. There's this process in the Jewish wedding at the time where the bride would come at night and the virgins would wait with lampstands. And they would wait, but they would never know the time that he would come. They would wait with lamps to help guide the way into the kind of procession through this whole process, right? So you should always have your lamps. It's always going to be at night. You should be dressed for the occasion. You should have extra oil. That's a given. 5 of them have plenty of oil. 5 of them do not. It's the tradition of the day that the bridegroom will always surprise those who are waiting. They don't know the day or the time or the hour. They fall asleep. They get tired. They're not watchful. But here he comes. But they have the lamps to guide the way when the time comes. And there's a bit of a warning at the end. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. Now the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. Yet they were able to get up, those who stuck around when the bridegroom came. Almost like there was a watch. Some of them watched while the others rested. And that was able to occur for those who stuck around. The 5 wise ones, and then the 5 unwise ones were out. They weren't there. They didn't wait. They weren't prepared. The Boy Scouts have a motto. It's be prepared. Always for what you need, always for what's coming. Anticipate every moment, but know your traditions. I mean, this tradition is very obvious. Have enough oil. Wait at night. Now, another way to look at it is these 5 could have waited with the others. There was probably enough light for all of them. But they wanted to make sure they had their own light, which they didn't have. And they had said, go get your own. Go buy your own. How do you buy oil? How do you buy that extra reserve? What do you do? It's when you build your faith. Like in life, you're not always on a mountaintop. You're often in a valley. You're often going through something, and you'll get your breakthrough. Romans 5:3. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, but God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. How about James 1:2? Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its effect, that you may be perfect and complete and lacking in nothing. It's at becoming more Christ-like in the hard times and learning the character of Jesus is that wellspring of character or fruits of the Holy Spirit or steadfastness that allows you to be called upon to have all that you need when it doesn't seem like, while others are getting worn down by situations, you still can call upon your testimonies, your history with God, your patient endurance, your faith, your character. That's what gets you through the hard time until you get lifted up again. That's what allowed these virgins, from a character perspective, to persevere, to have enough within them to wait through the hard time when they were tired, when they were weary, and when the Lord was delaying, his presence wasn't there. It's harder when his presence isn't there, but if you can wait just a little longer, there he is. But only half of them had what it took to wait. And waiting is pretty much the hardest part of being a Christian in many ways, is waiting for God to answer your prayers. You know he will because it's a promise. It's the waiting. It's what you do in the waiting. It's the character you're building in the waiting. It's the inward man that's being renewed every day while you're waiting. Yeah. That's what those 5 virgins had. The 5 wise virgins. The 5 foolish virgins, well, they didn't have what it took to wait, and they went out to get oil. An interesting perspective is if we continue with this pre-rapture conversation from the previous episodes, here we are. It's a Jewish wedding, Jewish traditions. If it was a Christian tradition, they wouldn't have, all these virgins with lamps and oil. So it's a Jewish tradition. It's written to the Jews. Okay. Now, if we're continuing our conversation thread of the pre-trib rapture, the Christians are gone. Okay. The Christians are gone. And now there's a marriage that's about to happen. And the marriage isn't necessarily from this perspective to the Gentile believers who are already grafted into the vine. It's the remarrying of those Jews who are coming to Christ. Okay? 5 of them don't have what it takes to stay, and they go and buy oil. And this is super fascinating. They go to buy oil. If they're there for the wedding, they have an invite. There's a pre-relationship. There's something going on. They know they're going to go to this wedding and even get in, but they go to buy oil. And once they buy oil, they come back and they can't get in. And it's a crazy perspective of what would cause one to lose their salvation in the end times. It's if anyone takes the mark of the beast. And why would you get the mark of the beast? It says to buy or sell. So they went to buy oil, and they couldn't get the oil unless they took the mark. And when they show up to the door, the master, who already knew them previously, most likely said, "I never knew you," because they denied him to take that mark, to get the oil, to show up for the wedding feast too late. They didn't have what it took to wait it out when the master was delayed. Isn't that interesting perspective, right? So whether you kind of ascribe to the interpretation here of that this is, just to the Jews, not to the Gentiles, I think the practical lesson is the same for everyone. It's absolutely and totally the same. Let's make sure we have enough oil. Let's walk faithfully all the days of these lives that we have. Let's walk faithfully and build up our inner man so we can go through any and all of the trials and everything we go through to stand the test of time. The Apostle Paul wrote these words. This is what Paul said at the end of his life, near the very end. 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From now on, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but to all who crave his appearing. He had a confidence that he's fulfilled his calling, that he's done all the Lord he's asked of him. He had fulfilled his purpose, and he had run the race. He has fought the fight. His confidence in an inner knowing. And Paul, when he was walked into Rome or stood before Nero, he did what he must do. He was obedient to his calling and his purpose and to his God. And like these virgins, if he was one of them, he would have had gallons of oil. Right? Like he just more than prepared. He was the teacher so that they all would be prepared. But we should all be prepared for his coming, for the day of his appearing. We should all be prepared to meet him at a moment's notice. I mean, if I knew the king was coming, I think I would have gallons of oil ready. Be standing there with the 2 million candle watt flashlight lighting up the street, right? The king is here. The king is coming. But the hard part is knowing that it'll be a while. I'll leave you guys with a question. How will you make sure that your oil and lamps are full? For it says even in Matthew 25:5, the bridegroom was delayed. They all felt tired and they slept. And if that was you, how would you make sure you were ready? Thanks for joining us for this episode of Message to Kings. Feel free to check out the website, messagetokings.com, or if you want to chat, email us at messagetokings@gmail.com.